I remember taking my children once to a shul in Los Angeles, and we were davening at this shul, and it had these very comfortable theater-style seats where they flop up and down. And so my 4-year-old at the time was playing with the seats, up and down and up and down. And I was waiting for someone to turn around and say, hey, look, you got to keep your kid quiet or send them out. Thankfully, no one said anything. But my child kept jumping up and down, and I was torn. Do I say something? Do I kick him out of shul? How do you keep a 4-year-old quiet in shul? There were no babysitting or groups to send him to. And I turned to him and I put my hand on his cheek, and very delicately, I said, sweetheart, I said, you see this chair? This chair is part of Hashem's home. And he says to me, with these big eyes, he says, wow, do you think Hashem has any toys in his house? That captures the childlike excitement of what it means to encounter a mitzvah for the first time. To be able to remember that there's joy. Does Hashem have any toys here? This wonderful world, this life that we have, it's full of toys, it's full of joy, it's full of nachas. But it's not going to happen on its own. We have to take the steps to make it happen. And as the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, Lefum tzara agra, the harder you work, the more effort you put in, the greater will be your reward, your satisfaction. But it's not going to happen on its own. It's going to take effort. Think about marriage. Think about every relationship that we encounter. If we want a superficial relationship, it takes very little work. We have many of them. But if we want a relationship that's meaningful, if we want to be able to encapsulate the warmth of Torah, the joy of a meaningful life, a purposeful life, so that's going to happen when we put forth the effort. Imagine if you come outside after a major snowstorm and you look at your car and it's completely buried under a foot of snow. So you get out there and you start digging and scraping and trying to remove all the snow and ice that you can. There's an alternative. Instead of breaking your back trying to go and remove all that snow, what you can do instead is just get into your car and start it. If you have a remote starter, you're even better off. Because then what happens is, without putting in that much effort, from the inside, the car warms up. And the heat that emanates from within the car, that's enough to be able to clean up all the snow. It accomplishes your goal with far less effort. That, my friends, is what Judaism is offering to us. So often, we go through the motions. We put in the effort, but it's really on the outside. It's external. Judaism was meant for the inside, to start from within, and then for the heat, the light, the warmth of Torah to radiate externally to the world around us. That's what it means to be Or Lagoyim, to be a light unto the nations. But it has to start from within. The first Lubavitcher Rebbe was once seen. It was Rosh Hashanah night. And after everyone had left shul, he stood at the bima and he wept and he cried. And after he left, one of the Talmidim took hold of the bima cover and he felt it, and it was moist. He was amazed. It was soaked with the tears of the great Rebbe. And so he took that piece of fabric and he began to wipe it on his cheeks. He began to wipe it over his eyes. And someone then asked him, what's the point of doing that? And he said, because we are taught in our tradition that tears have the ability to wipe away sin. And imagine the great tears of the Holy Rebbe, his great tears, his precious holy tears, they will help to atone for my mistakes. To which the fellow responded, I'm sorry, it does not work that way. If you want the tears to have the power, it has to start from within yourself. You can't externally apply the tears to your face. It has to start from the neshama, from within our hearts. Imagine that first time when you ever drove a car. Can you recall the feeling? For most of us, it was excitement which was tainted with panic. Terrified! And yet, we were so excited that we brought ourselves to go through the motions. Hands at 10 and 2. Gas on the right, brake on the left. Make sure to signal 100 feet before. Check your mirrors. And suddenly, as we began to learn how to drive a car, something happened. We stopped thinking about all of the mechanics that have to go into what it takes to drive a car. And instead, we start to do it by habit. It becomes rote. We don't think about it. Many of you arrived here tonight, and you probably don't remember driving your car, making a left, parking. It's just something that we do. So initially, there was great excitement which dissipated simply because we had too much to learn. The mechanics were too overwhelming. But then, we're just happy to get to a place where it becomes cruise control, where we don't have to think about it. But where's the joy? Why is it that an action that was once so full of meaning, so full of joy, that meant so much to us, that we couldn't wait to get our driver's license, to get out on the open road, that now either we don't think about it, or even worse, it's a burden. We hate to have to get in the car and go to the store, or pick up the kids, or drive to work, sit in traffic. It's a pain in the neck. So how do we reintroduce the joy? So friends, this is a very important journey that each of us go on in many different arenas throughout our lives. We start off with something, an endeavor that feels exciting, and then we get so caught up in the mechanics, the day-to-day, the how-to, in order to be able to execute what we're trying to accomplish. And then we just get stuck in a rut. Day in, day out, the grind, and we lose the joy. The real challenge, my friends, is to go back to that first step. To be able to once again sit back in the car and say, you know what? I'm going to enjoy this drive. Because there is pleasure, and we have to be able to take it. So often, we have the same approach when it comes to mitzvos. That first time when I was 13, and I put on that tefillin, oh my goodness, it was so exciting, but again, daunting. The excitement dissipated because I've got to wrap the tefillin, I got to say the brachos, I have to know which one and how and what the order is. To the point where I was just so excited to finally get the routine down that every day it just becomes a habit. And how often do we go through the mitzvahs where we don't actually think about God? Where we don't think about what the purpose is, where we don't think about the joy, the beauty, the meaning that we're supposed to have in those mitzvahs. And so that's the challenge. Yes, to learn the halachos, to know the mechanics of how to properly shake a lulav or light the Shabbos candles. But beyond that, to be able to rise to the level where we can still infuse the joy, that childlike excitement that we once found, and hold on to it. And I guarantee that if we can do that with passion, if we can do it with meaning, then it becomes contagious. That's the greatest chinuch. When we can teach our children, when they can see the love that we are experiencing, that going to shul, that being part of a community, that giving tzedakah is not a chore, it's not a burden, but the opposite. It's a pleasure. It's a nachas. It's what we live for because we are part of something greater. The warmth, that fire has to start from within. We can't apply it externally. If we can achieve that message, then it trickles down to everyone. Then our community, our friends, our family, our children, our grandchildren will be able to incorporate that message into their lives as well. May we all be zocheh that Hashem should give us the ability to be real, to be true to who we are, and to be able to inspire others around us with the warmth of Torah, the joy that starts in our soul, and the feeling of love that we can bring to our families, to our communities, and all of Klal Yisrael by making that Kiddush Hashem, by taking those steps to be able to bring a living, vibrant Judaism to the world around us.